Good afternoon. This is maybe the right time in the course to send you this PowerPoint with the voice activated buttons, which you should just click on every slide. Many of you are busy to get your ideas together about what you're going to write about in your exam script. And I believe it's important that you know just how maybe to decide on a title, how to present it, how to lay it out, should you do about the referencing and the length of it. This presentation should not be very long, and I hope that it helps you a lot so that you at least know that you've met all the technical requirements when it comes to grading of the script. Some of you have already contacted me about topics you would like to write about, and I think that's great if you are that lucky to already have a topic, but quite many of you have not contacted me, so I just assume that you have not decided on a topic yet. Maybe just listen to a few ideas before you decide, so that it could maybe be helpful in your decision. First of all, in choosing a topic, I believe that it could be a good idea to choose something that you feel strongly about, or something you're highly interested in, or something that poses a real problem to you at this point of time. For example, you may have a problem in the organization where you work where they do not see the potential of operating also across borders of the United States, and while you believe there could be huge potential, and it's really causing you a lot of frustration, and that could be quite a good topic sometimes to choose. In other words, something that you believe could overcome some of the frustrations you have in the company, and that's really grating you at this point of time. It also could be something that you believe could be good for your career. If you become an expert or do a little bit of a detailed study in some area of your organization, so that you can also use it as a kind of an extra something on your CV for maybe future promotion or future position in the organization. Right, you don't have to choose a title right away. It does not have to be perfect. It can just be a general title like the potential of establishing ourselves in Kuwait or some other country, or what country you want to choose, or just in general the international potential of whatever we do in our business. It could be, of course, any title of any sorts. Those titles that I've already received are quite interesting, and they're sometimes very personal, and sometimes they also stretch to a more general managerial type of problem. Right after that, I think you can start to write it down. But just before you write down, I would like you just to also pay attention to the rest of this slide presentation before you start writing it down. So just do it properly. But you possibly start off by writing an introduction, and here you have a lot of freedom of expression to tell us and to impress us with the problem. You can be quite persuasive here and you have, as I said, a lot of freedom to tell us that by solving this problem there could be huge benefits, and explain to us what the problem is all about. You can even give us some statistics and some background and some history. So it doesn't just have to be one paragraph. It could be quite a few paragraphs, even with sub-paragraphs where you explain in detail the intensity and the magnitude of the problem. And no one is going to really check whether everything is perfectly correct. So that's why I said you have quite a lot of freedom of expression. But this is about the only place where you have this kind of freedom in this whole paper of yours. Then, of course, you will also, at the end of the introduction and background, you will write down a few hypotheses, or just put down a few ideas you may have about what could possibly help to solve this problem. A few proposals, or some statements where you believe should be looked at in solving it. It doesn't have to meet all the exact research requirements of an hypothesis, but it could be some general thoughts about possible actions. But these are all hypothetically. You will only conclude at a later stage whether these were correct or not. It is quite important to present any research and any paper properly. You want people to read it, and you want to communicate properly. Now, so when you start writing, it could be a good idea to just immediately start in a proper way. I have given you a link here on YouTube on how to use Microsoft Word very effectively to save you a lot of trouble and to save you a lot of effort. Just take a bit of time to go through these links that I have for you on this slide, so that you can immediately create, from step one, create a clickable contents page, because I would like you to include a page of contents. Of course, that's after your title page, where you write your title and of your script, then a page of contents, and then as you type and as you go on, keep on following the instructions in Microsoft Word, which can make it very easy. Right at the end, you can just click one button. It's going to automatically create for you a perfect contents page, and it can also help you if you later on also watch the citations and the references, which also will be done automatically by Microsoft Word. I myself never knew about this until a while ago. We did some training, and this was one of the most helpful bits of training that bits of most helpful YouTubes that I have ever watched. There are quite a few of these. This is just the one that I feel is quite a good one. It also tells you about a little bit about the font, especially later on. I just think it's just nice to use a standard font right through. It also helps you, especially if you, in the second video, how to create graphs and illustrations. And if you include any illustrations and graphs, it's important that you also read about page breaks and paragraph breaks and the numbering system. Because if you do not create any paragraph and page breaks, you're going to find the moment you edit your work later on, everything jumps around in this document, and nothing is in the same place and nothing on the same page, so that the page numbers and the contents page numbers and the page numbers does not correlate at all. Of course, that is if you want to include page numbers, which is also a choice you can make depending on the length of your script. Lastly, you can decide to bind it nicely, or you can just decide to keep it on a digital format. It's your choice. So I would really recommend that you listen to these two YouTube presentations. Have your computer open, your Word documents open, start to practice a little bit on this, or just use it by practicing on this script you're going to do, and you will always remember in future about this, and it's going to help you in many other types of documents in future and reports you have to set up in a company. Some of you are already good at this. You already know a lot about Word and how to do this, but many of us are not that lucky. Right, what I have on this slide is a standard layout of your mini script. In other words, what will be on the first page and what's gonna, what are the type of paragraph titles you will use. On the first page, of course, it's going to be your title and your name, and in the second one, you will start with a contents page, and then of course you'll go to introduction. You don't have to use the word introduction. You can be a little bit more creative, and instead of that, saying the problem of a closed mindset or something like that, just as an introductory paragraph. It doesn't have to use the word introduction. Then you can say, instead of background, you can say the negative effect on profits of refusing to listen to your customers, or just something which could be a little bit more exciting than just reading background and wondering what you're going to get when you read background. So just prompt the reader to want to read further. The next will be your literature study. Now, in the whole layout, you must remember that how do we solve a problem like the one that you're going to address in this paper? Number one, you will first describe the problem, which is in the introduction and the background page. You describe it and write down a few ideas on how you could possibly solve it. So that is going to be your most interesting part. It normally stimulates the reader to read further, and you can allow yourself quite a lot of freedom to really impress us with the problem. Then you're going to say, no, right, how I'm going to solve the problem, and then you get your literature study. You're going to solve it through two basic means. Number one, let's see what other people did in research. That's why you're going to need a study of the literature where other research that people have done on the similar or the same type of problem. In that regard, I refer a little bit later that you can make use of the Roux Library at Florida Southern. They're very helpful to create a proper high-level list of articles and books and research that other people have done in that area. So you can actually take your problem to them and tell them what sort of research you're looking for, what sort of type of articles, and they will help you to find that. So you're going to try and see what books and what academics and what researchers and have studied about your problem, and you're going to write that down. This must be done properly with a proper referencing technique, which I refer to also a little bit later. Then after that, you do what we call an empirical study. By the way, you don't have to call this a literature study. You can also be a little bit more creative in explaining what you're going to try and solve this problem by looking at what other people did. Here you have virtually no freedom, by the way, in this literature study of just making your own statements or raising your own opinion, because we're not interested in your opinion and your statements. You have to, everything must come from what other people do, and it is legally important that you do give recognition to every statement that you make in this piece and everything that you refer to in the literature. Then you can maybe write down a brief summary at the end of this paragraph, which could be have a few sub-paragraphs as well, and then you go to empirical study. Now that's the second place where we try and solve our problem. The first one being the research of others, the second one being what happens out in the real world. In other words, now we have to go and find out ourselves what we can find out in terms of maybe some study we do in the real practical world, where this could be that you go and ask a few questions to people that are involved with this problem. You go and maybe test or weigh a few of the waste or something that was created in your company. You go and and measure a little bit. You're going to look at some figures of accounting and profit and tax. This is where you go out. This is what researchers do. They go and they do research. They measure. They study. They ask questions. They put together questionnaires. I don't expect you in this short little study to do a real detailed empirical study with factor analysis and everything like that. I just feel if you just make an attempt, maybe just an attempt to ask a few questions to people out there who could help you in solving the problem, people that know maybe more about this than you, and also incorporate their opinions into your study by maybe an item analysis or a descriptive summary of what you have found out there. Right, then you have to compile your results. In other words, what were the results of your empirical study? What did you find? Did you classify that? I'm not sure to what extent you're going to be have measurable results or statistical results, but you just have to include what was the result of your you going out there and ask all your questions. After that, you will now conclude both what you have found in the literature and in the practical empirical world that you have explored so as to solve this problem. So you will conclude it, and that will often be quite a number of conclusions that you can make, realizations that you can make about this problem that you started off in the beginning. And then you can also maybe conclude stuff like that my hypothesis in the beginning was not correct, that I have found that actually due to this and this, whatever I thought would be an effective way is not going to be an effective way to solve this problem. It doesn't have to be just confirm your hypothesis in the beginning or your postulates that you have, but it could also be saying that you actually found that it is not going to work to, for example, establish yourselves outside the borders of the United States or something like that. And then you make some recommendations. That's always important. Right at the end, recommend what should now be done in future. What changes would you recommend in the organization or in whatever problem that you are dealing with. And then after that, you just have to cite your references properly, but that will be in the next slide. As I said before, it is important that you use the proper referencing method. There are lots and lots of reading available and YouTubes on referencing techniques. We're using the APA method. There are about 4 methods that are quite widely used. This is one that is popular in Florida Southern and in many other universities. Especially they like the American Psychological Association method, or the APA method as it's called. It's got a certain way that you refer whenever you make a statement, and behind the statement you have to put in brackets maybe the author's name and the page number, and at the bottom at the end of your script you have to write down the whole list, also in a proper way. There's a certain way that these have to be cited. It doesn't have to be difficult, but there are strict and exact ways to do that. It is well explained in this YouTube, but there are many YouTubes and many other sources that you can consult about the APA methods. Just make sure that you do it right the first time. It's not difficult. Just know that you have to refer all your statements in the literature study and wherever you use other people's quotes or results or research, you have to give recognition to that. You can also contact the Roux Library, as I have here and I referred in the earlier slide. They are very keen and they're very helpful to help you create a whole list on sources and research that could be helpful to your specific title that you have chosen. Make use of this. It's part of what you paid for at Florida Southern, and they are there to help you so that you don't have to go and struggle through Google and some other means to try and find some proper sources. I do not want to talk too much about this topic. I'm sure that it is self-explanatory. I said it's a minimum of 10 pages. I think we should put a maximum here of 40 pages, but if I'm not really going to do a weight test here, I'm not going to weigh your script. No, your grading is not related to the weight and the number of pages you include in this. And many of the top class and best pieces of research that I have come across is often just done in a few pages, and please get to the point. Don't just add words, or we call it sometimes window dressing. Try and impress with many fancy and academic words. I promise you that very few people are impressed by that. And by the way, many students feel that they have to use extremely academic language in these manuscripts. It is I don't know where they get this idea from. The basic idea is still you have to communicate. Think while you're writing, think, how do I explain this difficult thing that I am studying now to a kid of 14 years old or 15 years old? If a kid of 14 or 15 can actually read and understand the problem and realize what you're trying to do, you know that you're possibly communicating properly. Remember, you are the expert. You are going to study this in depth. None of us will know as much as you do about this specific topic. So there's no need to try and impress us with some fancy words that you have found in the dictionary, because we just want to be able to understand what exactly the problem is, and you can use basic good communication to do that. Right, I just want to end off by saying what I said before in class. Remember, this is due, the title is due on the 30th September, or a hypothetical title. It doesn't have to be the real title, but it can be the vague title that you and the topic that you feel you want to work on. Just make sure that it's done before the 30th September. You can communicate that with email, or you can come and see me in the office and Skype me. You can call me. I don't care. I just want to see that you have something that you're working on, and that you are busy and you're making progress towards this end goal. Just the last point: if you really cannot find something to work on, it's sometimes politically good business politics to go and talk to your boss and ask him or her whether she has got any idea what type of problem she would like you to look at in more detail, because you're doing it anyway. It just could perhaps also work if you really cannot find anything else. All right, enjoy it. It's supposed to be enjoyable, and I'm sure you're going to find a lot of pleasure out of this exercise.